lot of us are dealing with some pretty shitty stuff that happened in our past. And, it could be a deployment, it could be something that happened in your service, it could be something that happened in your childhood, or it could be, maybe a girl ripped your heart out. And the biggest thing you have to realize about life is that bad things are going to happen. I've said that before. Bad things are going to happen. Life is not just a bunch of roses. You have to take the good with the bad, and you have to realize that you can grow from bad things. You can grow from negative experiences almost more than you can grow from positive experiences. If only good things happen to us in our lives, we wouldn't have any ambition to improve things. But the only time bad things become bad things is if we allow them to become bad things. What I mean by that is we carry them around with us, and we use them almost as reference points to create fear within ourselves, to keep ourselves from doing anything hard or taking a risk, or maybe starting a new relationship or starting a new business or going to school or getting out of the house or going out in public or doing a lot of the things that we should be doing to lead a really full and complete life. What I want you to understand here is that you can't control what happens to you. You can't control events, right? The world runs on its own. A lot of us, well, all of us, we think of ourselves as kind of living in our own movie, right? And we think of ourselves as the center of that movie, and that keeps playing in our heads. But the reality is that the world happens, and no matter who you are, if you sat on your couch for the rest of your life, something bad could still happen. You could have a heart attack, something bad could happen with your health, something bad could happen with one of your loved ones. We're all gonna die someday. But it's not the event that really impacts us, it's how we respond to it, right? How we allow that event to shape our actions in the future. And the reality is that you choose the impact that event has on you, right? You choose whether or not it's going to ruin your life. How do you do that? Well, you choose by your response, right? Are you going to use that as an excuse not to improve yourself? Are you going to use that as an excuse to sit on the couch? Are you going to use that as an excuse not to take a risk and try something new? Are you going to use that fear to prevent you from trying new things? Or are you going to say, you know what? That was a bad thing. These are the lessons I've learned. Let's go out and try something new. For example, when I was failing in my gym business and my life was miserable. I was in a shitty marriage. I had no money. And my wife had money, but I didn't have money. So, I basically had days where I wasn't eating. I had days where I couldn't afford to buy a cup of coffee. And eventually divorce happened and I was living out of my car and I'd lost the business. And while it was going on, the clearest memory in my mind was one of helplessness, right? Feeling like I couldn't do anything. Feeling like the world was happening to me. Everything in the world was stacked up against me. And the way I justified that was because, as I've told you before, my last deployment was highly uneventful. I never really did anything high speed in the Marine Corps. My last deployment I spent on security missions, right? Southern Iraq, where nothing was happening. But the year after that, after I'd been discharged, a lot of guys from my unit went back and they had a much harder time. and I lost some friends, and I wasn't there. And the way I justified all this misery I was going through afterwards was by saying that, you know what, this is God's punishment on me. This is God's punishment for me not being there when my friends needed me, not being there when my brothers needed me. And I know a lot of you deal with that same guilt. A lot of you are saying to yourselves, you know what, I'm here right now. Why the fuck am I here? Why the fuck am I here and my buddy's not? Why the fuck am I here and living when my friends have died? And you use that as a source of guilt, and you use that as a source of, I mean, it's a hard word to say, but you use it as an excuse to keep yourself from trying something new. And you say to yourself, if my life's miserable now, it's because I didn't do enough while I was in, right? Or maybe something happened in your past where you got a severe disappointment, and you say, you know what, I fucked up back then. I'm not good enough. I'm not going to try this anymore, right? But what happened with me was I got to a point where when I was living out of my car, I had nothing left. I had no money. I had to work to survive, right? I had to figure out a way to earn money or die. Yeah, I could have gone and I could have gotten a job. I could have moved home, back to Connecticut, home, lived on my mom's couch. But I also knew that that would have made me miserable. And so I forced myself to work. And I forced myself to learn business. I forced myself to learn internet marketing. And that's how I opened up my training business, right? I forced myself to produce content. I forced myself to open up a YouTube channel. I never wanted to do these videos. I hated filming myself. I actually fucking hate the way my voice sounds. But I decided that the risk was worth it. And I decided to stop punishing myself. And I decided to stop using my past as an excuse. And I changed that psychology. And I said to myself, you know what? It's not the event that happened, it's how I responded to it. Right? So rather than treating bad events as something that keep you from doing something, change your mindset and say to yourself, I'm going to learn some lessons from this bad event. I'm going to learn some lessons from this tragedy. And I'm going to instill them in my life. And I'm going to use them to grow. I know this is a little bit complicated, and I hope I'm not jumping all over the place too much. I'm always open to you guys. If you want to hit me up on the live chat on the Warrior Soul webpage, warriorsoulfitness.com, or email me at info@warriorsoulapparel.com. I'll put both below in the description box. You know I love you all, and let's get out there and live a good life, guys. Peace.